Former Democratic National Committee Chairman Jamie Harrison sees next year's midterm elections as an opportunity for the Democrats. He says it's similar to 2006 when Democrats won control of Congress during President George W. Bush's second term. Harrison puts the Republicans' loss back then down to a growing human and moral cost of the Iraq War and Republican attempts to privatize Social Security. And joining us now to discuss is Mike Leon, NTD News contributor and host of the podcast, Can We Please Talk? Mike, good morning and happy Friday.
Good to see you, Paul.
Mike, do you share Harrison's optimism for next year's midterms?
Well, let's take apart something that you just said there in terms of what Harrison mentioned. The approval rating on George W. Bush was around the Iraq War, right? Well, there's a war right now happening in the Middle East with respect to what's happening in Gaza, and Democrats are not even on the same page with that. We've seen so many Democratic politicians and different folks in the right-wing space, Paul, from Marjorie Taylor Greene to Tucker Carlson to Candace Owens. The list goes on and on, talking about Israel's influence in American politics. And Democrats are not even on the same page. We've seen mixed messages from Hakeem Jeffries all the way on down to some members of Congress like Ro Khanna that are a little bit more on this, we need a two-state solution. Even just look at the Pod Save America interview with Pete Buttigieg, who is a potential 2028 candidate, and he couldn't give a straight answer in terms of the solution for the Middle East. So I think I don't share his optimism, because I think that there are some issues right now that are dividing the Democratic Party. But here's what I will tell you. Gallup just had a poll came out in July of this past year where 46% of Americans are now registering or identifying as Democrats, but their favorability image in that same poll is at 34% and Republicans is at 38%. So they've got a ways to go to make up in terms of favorability and eventually getting people to the ballot box to vote Democrat in 2026.
And Mike, you're right. Harrison, he compared the Iraq War to what's happening in the Middle East. But even with taking everything that you've just said, like, is that the big issue that's still going to motivate voters come next year? Or what do you think the big issues will be come midterms 2026?
Yeah, great question, Paul. Well, first, if there's a ceasefire or if the war is negotiated by Trump, I think that could sway some public opinion to Republican side, depending upon how that all comes to shake out, right? So we still don't know that variable. As of present day right now, we know that it cost Kamala Harris, at least in Michigan, with respect to the Dearborn mayor there and the different folks that Trump met with from the Arab Muslim community that ended up voting for Trump. But I think there are some other issues like you just alluded to, Paul, right? There's what's happening with immigration. It's a policy change. The administration changed the policy for now that if you are here past your, undocumented visa stay, whatever it is, you are now treated as a criminal in the eyes of the Trump administration and the executive branch. And so I think that policy change, and I think people, we've seen polling that shows that people are in favor of legal immigration and how we tackle that. But the way they're seeing some of these ICE raids happen and the impacts to businesses, both locally at the state level, I think that's an issue that Democrats can get around. But again, it's how they craft that message towards it. And then the secondary part is, how are tariffs going to be impacted, right? We've seen a small effect here on the markets, but we don't know the long-term effect, and we don't know the negotiations with China, where a lot of American companies do business with. If we get a set number, let's say by the end of 25 going into 2026, it could tremendously sway public opinion, because those are the big things: economy, immigration. People care a little bit less about foreign policy, but they don't want to see what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening to innocent Palestinian women and children. They don't want to see that, and neither party has been able to solve that crisis. This episode of Can We Please Talk is presented by our friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Delicious tasting coffee since 2009. They've been our proud sponsor. You see the promo code there. Look at this. They sent me this beautiful kit right here. Listen to that. Listen to that seal coming out, right? What's in it? Environmentally safe, compostable K-Pods. I love the dark Mexican blend. You can go to their website right now, take the quiz. That quiz is going to put you with a flavor profile. Listen to that sound of the coffee that you're going to be matched up with. Go to freshroastedcoffee.com. Click the link right now in our show notes. You can see it right there. Click that link. It's going to take you to the site. When you get to checkout, use our promo code, Can We Please Get 20, all one word, Can We Please Get 20, 20. You're going to get 20% off your first purchase. head to freshroastedcoffee.com, our official sponsor of the Can We Please Talk podcast.
This is interesting. So we're waiting to see how these things play out, is what you're saying. Now, Harrison called the Trump administration's actions since taking office overreach. If you noted, he talked about the big, beautiful bill. He said, quote, "The power plays in D.C. and support for Israel's actions in the Middle East." Do voters see these things as overreach?
Well, that's a very good question, the way you framed it, because I think it depends on who you ask in those communities. Like, let's just take the D.C. National Guard as an example. The president is within his right because D.C. is the District of Columbia. It's not a state. It's under federal purview, especially with congressional approval after these 30 days of this executive order expiring. So that's different than the National Guard being deployed to Chicago or New York. If those instances tend to happen and the courts uphold those potential legal challenges on the president's side and they side with the president, then we could see some potential public opinion start to sway towards that. I think at the end of the day, look, Democrats have just not been able to talk about, I hate using the phrase kitchen table issues because it's so stupid, but the president used kitchen table issues when he was talking about it. He's like, look, are you making the same amount of money you were when I was president in 2019? Because he always excludes 2020 and the pandemic. And the answer at the time for a lot of voters was, no, I'm not. I'm unemployed right now, right? Even though the unemployment rate was around 4% when Biden left office. So I think those are the things that the president ran on, even though he does his weave, even though he does, I'm not going to do the impression here for you, Paul, even though we've never met before. But he's done those things to make himself relatable. And a lot of the things with the Democratic Party was Kamala Harris was not relatable. And if her policies were so great, how come she didn't pitch them to Joe Biden and we did them during the Biden administration? Those were things that were challenges for the Democratic Party. I don't think those things will be there in 28, to Harrison's point, because I think we have a couple of years now of the Trump administration, and we'll see what happens in the midterms if Democrats are able to take back either the House or Senate.
Well, you've touched on an interesting point when you brought up the Democratic side, because in Harrison's op-ed or blog post or messaging that we're discussing, he mainly talked about problems with the Republican side. He didn't raise any potential issues with the Democratic side, either in their messaging, in their policies, or anything else. Is there some introspection for Democrats still to do, looking at what happened in the election and now post-election?
Paul, you hit the nail on the head. Like there's an analogy in sports, right? You can't control what happens. You can control how you respond. But the way you respond is by looking at what you did that failed. And Democrats are not doing that. Let me give you an incredibly granular example that people will understand here. I talked with a very visible Democratic strategist, Chuck Rocha, about this on my show, Can We Please Talk? He was Bernie Sanders' former campaign manager. Chuck and I are both Latinos, right? Chuck is Mexican from East Texas. I'm a Puerto Rican and Cuban kid from the Bronx, right? I live now here in Miami. Each of us know a candidate that is running for Democratic office in our respective districts in Miami and in Texas. Both communities speak Spanish, largely Spanish. In my community, it's 72% of folks speak Spanish. Both of those candidates, you know what they did, Paul? They hired white firms based out of Chicago that Kamala Harris used in the election to try to talk to Latino voters. Does that make any sense to anybody that's watching this? Why would you do anything like that? And one of the things that I credited President Trump for doing, I don't credit President Trump for a lot. This is what I credited him for. During the campaign cycle and the GOP debates, the third debates that happened in Miami, he held a rally in Hialeah, Florida. That's where 80% of Hispanics live that live here in Miami in Hialeah. He knew where to go to meet the people that are Hispanic that want to talk to the president. And that was something that Democrats they don't have the introspective, but also when they get the introspective from people that want to help them, they turn down that information. And we're seeing it as the numbers have shifted in Latino voters, just as an example, from 2016 to now 2024.
Which was quite striking on election night to see those numbers roll in. Mike Leon, appreciate it, sir. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. You too. Hey, everybody. Mike Leon from the Can We Please Talk podcast. Thank you so much for watching this clip. Do me a favor. Hit subscribe. Going to get more content from us over at Can We Please Talk.